I used to believe my mother was the one person in the world who would never lie to me. She was the constant in my life, the anchor. No matter what storm I faced, she was always there, steady, reliable, and kind. That's what made the betrayal cut so deep. Because when the person you trust the most hides the biggest secret of your life, it doesn't just hurt. It rearranges everything. Who you are, who you thought you were, who you might have been, had you only known the truth. My mother's name was Mariam. And to me, she was a fortress, tough, unshakable, always in control. She raised me alone, never remarried, never even dated that I knew of. When I was younger, I used to ask about my dad, where he was, why he wasn't around. Her answer was always the same: he left before you were born. He didn't want to be a father. The end. I stopped asking around age 10. I figured it just made her sad. I imagined some heartless man walking away from a pregnant woman and never looking back. I hated him. I hated that I had half his blood, that some part of him lived inside me. And I loved my mother even more fiercely because I believed she had been abandoned, left to do it all alone. And she did it. She gave me a good life. Sacrificed everything. Worked 2 jobs, put me through school, attended every parent-teacher conference, cheered at every graduation. I loved her with everything in me. Which is why what happened after she died almost destroyed me. She passed away quietly in her sleep after a short illness. The doctors called it a heart failure, something genetic, they said. Sudden, but not uncommon. I was 30 when it happened. She was only 54. Too young. I held her hand the night before. She was tired, but lucid. She looked at me, her eyes watery, and said something I now can't forget: no matter how hard I try, always remember, I did it all for you. At the time, I thought she meant the obvious things. The sacrifices, the struggles, the lonely years of raising me by herself. I kissed her forehead, told her I loved her, and went home. She died 5 hours later. The funeral was small. She didn't have many friends. She kept to herself. Afterward, I went back to the house. Our house. The same house I'd grown up in. It was filled with so many memories, but they felt dim. Like I was looking at them through dirty glass. I don't know why I felt so unsettled, like something wasn't quite right. I chalked it up to grief. Until I found the box. It was shoved deep in the back of her closet behind old coats and unused linens. A small wooden box with a latch, the kind that looked like it held love letters or jewelry. I didn't think much of it. I opened it absently. What I found inside made my blood run cold. Letters. Dozens of them. All addressed to her. The handwriting was familiar in a strange way, neat but masculine. And each was signed the same way, J. I sat on the floor of her bedroom, holding the first letter in shaking hands. I read it once. Then again. And then I read the next one. And the next. Mariam. You stopped answering my calls. I know you're hurt, but please don't punish me by keeping me away from my child. I made mistakes, but I never stopped loving you. Or them. Please let me be a part of their life. They deserve to know their father. J. I couldn't breathe. The words blurred. Child. Their child. He was talking about me. This man, this J, had been writing to my mother for years, begging to be allowed into my life. Apologizing, explaining, pleading. He hadn't abandoned us. He had been kept away. I was trembling. My entire identity felt like it had been set on fire. I went through the letters one by one. Some were heartbreakingly detailed. He wrote about my birthday, even though he wasn't there. He described gifts he'd sent that were returned unopened. He asked how I was doing in school. If I liked reading. If I had her smile. He wrote like a man clinging to hope with bleeding fingers. He wrote like a father. I was stunned. The woman I had worshipped my whole life had lied to me. Not just a little white lie. A lie that changed the course of everything. She didn't just say my father left. She built an entire story around his absence, one where he was the villain and she was the brave survivor. But that wasn't the truth. She erased him from my life. Deliberately. The rage came slowly. First confusion. Then disbelief. And then this boiling fury that kept me up at night, pacing through the house like a ghost. How could she? Who gave her the right? I didn't sleep for 3 days. And then, in the darkness of that third night, I did something I thought I'd never do. I tried to find him. I searched the return address on the last letter. It was dated only 5 years ago. The name was Jonathan Reed. A quick search pulled up a small woodworking business 2 towns over. The website was basic, but there was a number listed. I stared at it for hours. Then, without fully deciding to, I dialed. Hello. The voice on the other end was older, tired, cautious. I swallowed hard. Is this Jonathan Reed? A long pause. Yes. Who is this? My name is Claire. Claire Hayes. I think you're my daughter. Silence. I could hear him breathing, but no words came. Just a long, stunned exhale. And then, he started crying. Softly at first. Then like a dam had broken. He didn't ask how I found him. He didn't question me. He just kept saying, "You found me. You finally found me." I was crying too, before I even realized it. He told me everything. How he and my mother had been high school sweethearts. How he wanted to marry her when she got pregnant. But her parents, deeply conservative, deeply controlling, refused. They threatened to disown her. Said he'd never amount to anything. That he'd ruin her life. She was terrified. Young. Alone. And she chose them over him. But he didn't give up. For years, he wrote. He tried to find us. He tried to visit. But every door he knocked on was slammed in his face. At one point, she filed a restraining order against him. Told the courts he was dangerous. It was a lie. He said he stopped trying when he realized she'd do anything to keep him out. He didn't want to make things harder for me. So he let go. But he never stopped thinking about me. I didn't know how to process it all. The grief of losing my mother. The betrayal of her deception. The sudden presence of this man who had lived only in the shadows of a false story. We agreed to meet a week later. A quiet cafe on a Sunday afternoon. He looked older than I expected. Grey in his beard, deep lines in his face. But his eyes were gentle, kind. And when he smiled, something in me shattered, because I saw my smile in his. We sat for hours. He brought photos, of him, of his parents, of the life he'd wanted to share with me. He never married. Never had other children. There was only ever you, he said. I didn't know what to say. That night, I went back to my mother's house and cried until dawn. The next day, I got a call from her lawyer. There was something left for me, something private. A video message. She'd recorded it 2 months before she died. I sat on the couch, the screen glowing, her face appearing in front of me for the first time since I saw her lowered into the ground. Claire, she said, her voice shaky. If you're watching this, then I'm gone. And I know you've probably found the letters. She looked tired. Hollow. I lied to you, she said. I told myself it was to protect you. To keep you safe. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid you'd love him more. Afraid I'd lose you. And I couldn't bear that. So I shut him out. I erased him. And I made you believe he didn't care. But that was never true. He tried. He really tried. She looked away for a moment, like she couldn't face me. I hope one day you can forgive me. I did it all for you, but I see now, maybe I did it for me. The screen went black. And I sat there in the silence, finally understanding the full weight of her last words. I did it all for you. I don't know if I've forgiven her yet. Some days, I ache for her. Other days, I feel angry all over again. But I know this much, I understand her now. She wasn't perfect. She was scared. And in her fear, she made a terrible choice. But she loved me. Flawed, broken, and messy, but with everything she had. And now, I'm trying to build something with the man she kept from me. Slowly. One coffee at a time. One shared memory at a time. He calls me every Sunday. He's coming to my house for Thanksgiving this year. We're trying. Because even if the truth shattered everything, it also gave me a second chance. If you stayed with me this long, thank you. Stories like this aren't just dramatic, they're deeply human. And sometimes, the deepest pain we carry comes from the people we love the most.